Welcome to the Open Mic Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hey, and welcome to the Open Mic Podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to be covering an amazing topic of supporting women in leadership to increase their personal brand. Today's influencer guest is Tamica Sears, the founder of Sears Coaching. And Tamica is based out of a place that's close to my own heart, which is Phoenix, Arizona. I've got a lot of friends still in Phoenix from my Infusionsoft days, and it's an amazing place. A little bit hot and sticky out there at the moment at the time of the recording here in August, but an amazing place all the same. And for those, just to give a little bit of background, Tamica supports women in leadership and helps them increase their personal branding through one-on-one coaching, group coaching and workshops and retreats. And, you know, when I've worked in businesses and organizations and continue to do at executive board level, you know, the importance for organizations, you know, to adopt, it's not just equality and diversity in the 21st century. That's a given. It's the cost of acceptance in business today. But, you know, it's important that that happens throughout their companies, you know, and, you know, to provide those equal opportunities. And, you know, I'm honored really that there's so many people like Tamica championing this cause, driving and being a channel to sort of help and support women in business to grow, to be better, to bring more value to the world. And, you know, I look back and even today in some of the leading organizations, you've got exceptional women leading the charge in the boardrooms, people like Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, Ursula Burns at IBM, you know, but it's not just even the private sectors. You know, we're looking in the public and government department. Here in the UK, obviously we've just lost Theresa May as our second female prime minister after Margaret Thatcher. But, you know, even look to the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. You know, these are women who are doing stunning jobs, you know, leading, you know, global and government and you know, private organizations. And the valuable work that people like Tamica delivers, you know, is encouraging and building and supporting that. So, you know, it's not just men, it's not just women as a whole, to have a personal brand, you know, is really, you know, important and essential for people in the leadership type of roles to sort of really get that traction down and get going. So welcome to the show, Tamica. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I'm really looking forward to learning from you. And how is it out there at Phoenix at the moment? Sticky, hot, or somewhere in between? How is that going?
It's a bit sticky. We're in our wonderful monsoon season, so it's a little moist, which is not how it is typically every day here in Phoenix.
No, I've been in Phoenix at different times of the year, as I think I was saying off air. I think it went 3 times in 8 months, and there are different climates all the time. Yeah. But the summer months, it's, you know, it's like, whoo, it gets a little bit hot there. But we really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. And if you want to connect with Tamica, you can do that on all the social channels. You can find her on Facebook at /Tamica.Sears, and that's TAMICA.SEARS. LinkedIn, same /IN/Tamica Sears. Handle Sears Coaching on Instagram, and the website, of course, you can check out and head over to the amazing work that Tamica's doing, including some of the events that she's running at searscoaching.com. For those listening on the apps and the online channels, we'll put those on the blog. You can head over to blog.thesuccessof.io/podcast, and all these show links and links are going to be on there, including a very special retreat that Tamica's running at the moment for October in 2019 out in Phuket in Thailand. And you can do that by going to searscoaching.com /event-directory. You can check out all that there. It's an amazing sort of time away, and it's certainly worthwhile checking out. Also check out Tamica on social using the hashtags #TheCorporateFixer. And I was covering this with Tamica off air. It's an amazing sort of brand, and we're going to learn more about that in a moment or two. You can also check her out at #SenseOfSelf and #NewNormal, which are great because I love those sort of unique sort of styles. And before we kick off, Tamica, just tell us, you know, how this corporate fixer and sense of self and comes out. You know, and by the way, I'm getting this live as well. I've not heard this before, so it's slightly off script. You know, my regular listeners, I always do that. I go off script because I see something and I think it's interesting. Maybe it is or isn't. But tell me a little bit more about that, Tamica.
It's funny. So the corporate fixer, I'm into, branding and standing out. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she's like, you do all of this for other people. She's like, what about you? Like, what's your brand? What do you do? And I was like, I fix things in corporate. And she's like, you can't say hashtag I fix things in corporate. And so I go, oh, I'm the corporate fixer. And she's like, yes, you're the corporate fixer.
That's an amazing thing. And it's so relevant. And, they always say, do what it's like, say, do what it says on the tin, like the old paint coating companies, Ronseal, it does exactly what it says in the tin. And I love it. The simplicity of it. It's
yeah. And then for new normal, it's there, because I say all the time, I'm like, there needs to be a new normal in corporate. Like we can't keep doing the same old, treating people poorly and, not having diversity. There has to be a new normal. So that's my thing is there's like new normal.
Yeah, no, love it. Absolutely love it. And, as we kick out for the audience, let's talk a little bit about you. As the corporate fixer, I understand your mission obviously is to help people become more self-aware, so you can lead from a place of authenticity and self-acceptance. And a lot of people struggle with that either,
Yes.
I see this in here in the UK, either people are either struggling with that self-acceptance or they think that they've got imposter syndrome or they're just not confident or whatever it may be. But I know you believe strongly that everyone should be able to, bring their, whole selves to work and have that, opportunity to be innovative and sort of empowered. And I just really want to dig down and deep into that, Tamica. There's too many people out there, I think, in today's world saying these type of things. But I know you believe that from the heart. So just tell me a little bit more why we lead out with that and why that's so important to you.
So I think it's important to me because I've lived it. I've been in organizations where I did feel like I couldn't be myself. I couldn't bring my whole self to work. Being led by people who are just driven by numbers.
Yeah.
They weren't self-aware. They weren't aware of things going on around them. And I know how much that stifles people. It stifles creativity. Being in environments where you can't make a mistake for fear of being fired. So those are the types of things that I work with leaders to say, if you lead from a place where you would want to be, then that helps the organization overall. Not having authenticity, and I know it's such a woo thing, right? Like it's not a corporate word, authenticity. Like what's that even mean? But truly, if you know who you are, you're going to be a better leader because you know yourself, you know your expectations, and you're able to work with people on a much deeper level and, get more out of them. So it's almost kind of like selfish.
It's taking the chains off people, is it? To unshackle them and say, go and be your best. Go and make that happen type of thing.
Yeah, because it's loving yourself. It's people always think it's like a selfish thing, and it's like, but it's the best thing that you can do. Know yourself and love yourself. I mean, it's amazing the things that people do when they get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you were in, just, going back to when you were in that environment, you mentioned earlier, people get stifled. That impacts the bottom line of businesses, doesn't it? That whether you call it micromanagement, they're not listening or whatever it is, it's impacting bottom lines of businesses. And I'd love to take your view, and I know it's slightly off script a little, but why do you think that, whether it's corporate America, corporate Europe, corporate UK, why do you think we're still stuck in that same old-fashioned mindset that's acceptable? I certainly don't get it. And, obviously working with entrepreneurs and amazing people around the world, like yourself, to us, it's pretty normal that we'd want to give us best work and improve the business, improve customer service, improve ourselves. But why do you think that these organizations are just not getting it still in the 21st century?
So I think a lot of it still is just like that sheer ignorance, like that people just truly don't understand, that there is a correlation between someone's happiness at work and the amount of work that you get out of them. I think that there are people that still honestly believe if I tell you to do something, you're going to do it and you're going to do it well just because I told you to.
Yeah. And they don't understand the deeper meaning is this where you
right.
get?
Right. And so it's like there are studies out there that have shown, engaged employees are more productive employees. So if your employees are happy, they're going to do more for you. And one of the things I try to teach leaders is, you need to be employee first. If you take care of your employees are going to take care of the company. If you're, too worried about the company, you're just that's your focus, and you're not focused on your employees, then they'll never go as well as they could.
No, absolutely. Well said. And it's certainly a champion that. And, if there's any corporate leaders out there who are stuck in those situations, you can always shoot us a message. Use the hashtag The Open Mic. Check in with Tamica. She'll be more than happy to sort of, give you a little bit of advice and put you on the right track. And, because sometimes it's just about breaking that chain, isn't it? And sort of saying, hey, this is how we've always done it around here, but, there is a new way. And, maybe do you think that leaders are maybe still fearful that, hey, if I do go out of that, I'm going to get, like you said, I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to get remembered, or I'm going to have my promotion opportunities restricted. How do you approach that? And how do you get them to champion that and take that first step over the line, if that makes sense? That's going to be an enormous challenge for you, Tamica.
Yes. So the this is how we've always done it thing, that is whenever I hear that, I'm just that's the worst. And so one of the things that companies are starting to understand is that people have options. So if you have this person at your organization who wants to take a risk, who wants to be innovative, and you don't let them, that person can go do great things someplace else.
Yeah.
And so as I'm talking to leaders and they're starting to understand that, it's so I can either let this person, they can look at it, there's a 50-50 chance, right? This person is going to make them millions, or they're going to make a mistake that may cost them something, but it won't be near as much of the cost as losing that employee and losing that innovation and losing that mind that wants to do great things.
Yeah, that's great. And sometimes it's just sheer blindness of living in the moment, isn't it? Which is, I've got the blinkers on and, and you go from there. So no, I get it. And I suppose as a HR professional and leadership development coach, you spent about 20 years doing this, and just tell us some of the sort of leaders that you've sort of been coaching in different range of organizations. I understand Fortune 100 companies and things like that. Tell us a little bit about that and how that come around and some of the stories around that. That'd be great.
I've been able to coach some amazing, amazing people. And the way I even started coaching was just weird. It's not the way people normally start coaching. So I was given an opportunity to have a coach, and I thought they were awful. And I was like, oh my God, I can totally do better than this. So I went to school to become a coach, and it was so eye-opening because being in HR, I'm like, I coach all the time. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. So it was, I went back to school when I was 35 to be a coach, and I was learning new things. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And so then to be able to bring that to leaders, one of the leaders that I used to work with, he used to call me the patron saint of lost leaders.
Wow.
If people were not doing well at all, I was able to help them get their self-esteem back, get back on track, and start being uber successful. Because there are no lost causes. I truly think that as long as somebody wants to learn and grow and develop, they will.
Yeah.
And so he was a fun person to work with because he would be like, okay, what can you do with so-and-so?
So they got the benefit of it and then pass it down and it'll go from there. Yeah. And, obviously the difference, and for maybe some of the listeners that may be thinking, well, I'm thinking about getting a coach. And I noticed in your bio, obviously I mentioned earlier, you're doing the Fortune 100 companies, but all the way through to sort of, as you call it, mom and pop shops type of thing, right. Which is the one man. How do you approach as a coach? Because it's not about people being at different levels. I just want to be clear here. So I'm not saying that, hey, we all want to be in the Fortune 100 and the small businesses don't matter. Hey, small businesses drive 90% of the business, or 90+% of the business in the small in the economy. I'm just trying to say that approaching a small family type business to coach versus maybe an executive team leaders or executive C-suite in a Fortune 100 companies. Is there a difference in your approach? Is there a difference in your methodology? What are the challenges around that? What are the rewards out of that? Just love to get your insights from the knowledge that you've got, because, I get a lot of questions sometimes. Mike, I listened to the podcast and this influencer was awesome, but I'm not there. I'm not here. I'm not at the NASA level. I'm just down here. So as I've learned to interview people, I'm trying to get that broader range. And that's why I love that in your bio, because you've got such a diverse sort of range of coaching skills into different industries and sectors and levels. And for people thinking about it, what are the challenges? And if people are sat in those situations, how do they get started?
So when I approach smaller companies, it's a matter of finding out, where they want to be, where they think they are, and seeing if we can kind of close that gap.
Yeah. And
there are some small companies that they want to stay small. They want to keep that small feel, and that's great. And I think that you can be a upper mid-sized company and still keep that small feel and that very
that culture.
Yeah, like that family-oriented type of feel. But it does start with your leaders. And the leadership up top needs to have a good idea of what the leaders on the front line are doing. And I think that's one of the things that's true throughout. So whether it's a small manufacturing company, that person that's sitting in the office in the back, doing the bean counting, they need to know what's going on that production floor.
Yeah.
And they need to be well aware of what the leaders on the production floor are doing. And it's so funny because, when you have these huge companies that get into trouble with social media, like the Starbucks and things like that, so often it's because people don't know what that front line is doing.
Yeah.
So the message that the CEO is giving is so different from what that front line is doing.
So there's a disconnect.
There's a huge disconnect. So, whether I'm going into a small company or a large company, it's really about addressing that disconnect, because that's how they're able to really move forward and move forward faster, because then their vision is actually going down to the levels where it needs to go.
That's amazing. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I do see that as well, siloed management teams to disgruntled employees or middle management, and, where it comes down and leadership pressure comes down and that gets diluted or distracted. And then other people have got their own agendas in there. It ultimately can become very toxic, can't it? So, obviously, the customers feel that, when they're paying the hard-earned dollars over the counter or whatever it may be. So it is. And what would you say, and again, slightly off script here, but I'm really keen to sort of get your insights on this. And by the way, for the listeners and the people watching on the blog, this is not a sales pitch, guys. This is just something reality that I remember the first time that I took a non-exec on. I was so fearful about taking a non-exec and a coach on. Thinking like, they're going to expose all my fears and I'm going to be rubbish and, they're going to fire me and, all that sort of stuff. So, if there's people out there, Tamica, who are maybe on the fence about do I or don't I take a coach on, what sort of advice would you give them to say if a coach is right for you, then this is the sort of symptoms that you may have and this is how you maybe would get started? What type of advice would you give to people who are maybe on the fence about thinking about getting started with a coach?
So I think the first thing that I say to people, so that this kind of like relieves tons of fears. The sessions that I have with my clients are confidential.
Yeah.
So even if the leader has engaged me, I don't tell that leader anything that goes on in that session.
Yeah.
It's totally up to my client to say what they want to be, what they want their leader to know. Even if I do like a 360 assessment, none of that goes to that person's leader. So it's confidential. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, okay.
So
because the fear is I'm going to, expose my weaknesses to this coach and they're going to tell my leader.
Yeah. So,
which in and of itself is kind of an issue because you should be able to be vulnerable with your leader, but that's a whole different story. So like I said, when I had a coach, I didn't enjoy it. I was assigned a coach. So what I would say would be schedule 30 minutes chats with people and get to know the coach, because you're not going to click with everyone. I don't click with everyone. I'm very direct. I am very action oriented. So there are some people that, they want a buddy instead of a coach. I'm not your gal. I'm here to make a difference. So get to know people, and then you'll kind of know if that particular coach is for you. But if you are having issues at work, doesn't matter if it's an issue with your leader, issue with coworkers, issue managing your team, I can almost guarantee you there's a coach out there that can help you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think I see it sometimes as well. And I don't know if you see it. There's the people who can't or the people who won't. And, that's always a difficult sort of situation to deal with. And I know that you focus so much on helping increase the productivity and revenue just by having that better engagement, which, if the business leaders, as you're listening to this, go and look at yourself hard in the mirror. And how are you impacting your team? How are you impacting your staff? Are you getting the best out of them? And if not, please connect with Tamica. So head over to searscoaching.com. Take a look at what she's doing there. Tamica, obvious question here. I know we're talking all about supporting women in leadership to increase the personal brand, and that's how we opened the show. But you mentioned earlier that you were working with a specific guy out there. Do you still take the guys on, or is it have you taken a full shift? Say, hey, it's women only type of thing.
I do still take the guys on. And part of it is because it's difficult to sometimes not take a team approach. So oftentimes when I coach, I may be coaching the whole team, so that it's you have a better awareness of what's going on with that team. And if there are conflicts, you're able to coach around that conflict. So when I am working with teams, I take on the whole team. I don't just say I'll just take on the gals. But I am very, very, very appreciative that I can give a lot of extra help to women leaders, because I do think that the women leaders, you do have to coach differently. I feel like we, as women, we need different things in our leadership. We need to be told different things. It's like growing up, I was kind of told that you had to be like this big, rough, no nonsense, big old shoulder pads gal in order to,
80s throwback, yeah. Right.
It's like, think back to the, I don't know if you remember the show Designing Women. It's like everybody with their parachutes, and, that's kind of what we were told as women we had to be. You couldn't be yourself. You couldn't be soft. And so learning that that's okay, and learning that you can be yourself at work and still be successful it's an amazing eye opener to so many women.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if they've got a channel and they know that they can open up, it makes it a lot easier to sort of follow through and get those results. And, and I think, I always like to use the aha moment. I know it's overused, or the penny drop moment, but when they actually get it and you can see them for the first time, the eyes light up and they get in, and then, they go and implement it. Then they're reporting back, and there's a lot of satisfaction. And I know on that point, from your bio, you're extremely grateful for being able to sort of play a major part in changing corporate America. And just tell me why that's so. I know we touched it at the beginning, but expand on that, why that's so important. Because grateful, appreciative. When people say, well, do you really get that out of your work, Mike? And for me, I can tell you, I love doing this type of job. I love helping people. I get more satisfaction out of seeing my clients succeed, when they drive forward, the past specific milestones, it's a skipping the step, and it's like, get in, they've achieved that milestone. Wow. And I'd love to know how you feel about that. Why does that drive you so much as a coach?
I think for me, like I said, I've had bad leaders. I've had a series of bad leaders. One of my very first managers, way back in the day, I was working at a call center, and I had a leader who was just phenomenal. She would stop her day to help me out. She told me the greatest piece of advice that I ever heard, and it probably was because she was tired of me, complaining and bugging her. But she said, before you bring any type of complaint, try to figure out 3 possible solutions, which to me, I was like, holy cow, like that was my aha moment, right? Like, I just thought it was absolutely amazing. And I've kind of, taken that with me. And I was like, 23-year-old kid with, my first real job, my first manager. And to this day, she's still a mentor to me.
Oh, brilliant.
And starting from that and then going on to my next job and being like, oh my God, like what is going on here? These people are awful. It was just like, I want everyone to be able to have that experience that I had, as because it shaped me. Yeah. And it gave me the expectation of leadership that I think everyone should have.
Yeah. And tell me, obviously looking at your college education, MA Leadership, Northern Arizona, but you got your BA Organizational Development Psychology. That's the faculty side of it, the learning, the education. Some will say the theory side of it. When you went through the coaching, to develop yourself, how big a difference is it? Because, we hear people like Gary Vee, you either love him or you hate him, there's no right or wrong, but he's saying, hey, never go to college, college is for employees, the real world of hustle is for entrepreneurs. And again, right or wrong, you make your own decision on that. But, obviously you've sort of had a strong education in that, but you've also had a lot of what we call cold face, education in the real world outside of that. And I'm just interested that now as a leading coach, what are the differences? Do you have any guidance for people who was maybe sat on the fence there who say, should I go to college? Should I go and go in the real world and get a coach? I know it might be. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
this is a very interesting question, because one of the things that people don't know about me is that I went to college later in life.
Yeah.
I did not do the traditional graduate from high school, go to college, get your degree, then get your master's. I graduated from high school and had a baby.
Yeah.
So, I had a full ride scholarship to UMass Boston, and I wasn't able to do it because I was focused on being a mom. Yeah. So I learned through experience. And then when I did say, okay, it's time for me to go to college, because if I want my son to go to college, I can't tell him to get a degree if I don't have one. That was literally the only reason I went to school, was so that my son would. Wow. And so I did it the slow way, because I was like, oh God, school. So I did my associates, and I did my bachelor's, and I did my master's. And I got to tell you, I went back when I was 28, 29. I didn't learn anything until I went to school for coaching.
Right. Interesting.
I didn't, because I had been doing the work for so long that it was like, I was like, oh man, this is interesting. This is the nice, I didn't realize this was the theory behind what I've been putting into practice.
Yeah. So it was like a backfill then. You were at the coal face, but then somebody said, hey, this is how you dig the tunnel type of thing.
Right.
I've been digging for the last 6 years. That's interesting.
Right. So
tell me, as you went into the coaching education, if we call it that, the study and the master in that, you said earlier that then, just now you said that you didn't really learn anything, I'm sure you did, but, not at that level. But
right.
What was the gear change between that coaching sort of degree and education than what I call the traditional MABA side of it?
So the coaching learning was learning a completely different mindset. So like your mind is a muscle, and when you're actively using your mind, you get tired, like using any other muscle. And I would leave my coach training like, oh man, I am wiped, because I spent my time thinking about things that I hadn't thought about before, because I was very corporate, very corporate. And so I didn't think about, like, I went in like, well, this woo, I don't want to, like, I'm not a life coach, me. And then I went to a school that was very integrative. So it taught me that it doesn't matter when something happens to you, it's going to impact all of you.
Yeah.
So it was truly learning to see things differently. And I'm telling you, just the insight and perspective that doing that training gave me. And I think that every HR professional should get, even if it's just a crash course, some training and coaching, because we are ones to say we're coaching someone, but really we're providing feedback. And coaching and feedback could not be more different.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really, really interesting. And I think when I look at that, and it's put in such a simplistic way, which is great coaching, because, you know, you're not complicating it, you're bringing it down. In your mind, help the audience understand, if the leaders, if they're in HR now, they're leaders, and they say, Mike, Tamica's saying that coaching and feedback's two different things. Just give us a quick 101 rundown on the key differences of that, if you could.
So the major difference is, you know, when you're providing someone feedback, you're letting them know from your perspective what they did right or wrong.
Yeah.
And when you're coaching someone, you're asking them to look at perspectives from their point of view, from the point of view of their leader, from the point of view of everyone else in the room, to try to figure out, you know, a very holistic view of what they did right or wrong.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's great. Love it. And we're going to get that pinned into the podcast. So we'll get that quoted out as a little extra resource, because, you know, I get it all the time that people say, Mike, do I really need a coach? And, you know, I've got my peers, I've got my social network. I said, yeah, but, you know, these you know, the good coaches out there, they're not just going to give you, you know, some casual chat over the bar with a drink.
Right.
There's a structure to this. There's a psychology to this.
It's very different, because like when I'm out with friends, I every once in a while, you know, I'll slip in a coaching mode, and they know the difference. Like my friends are like, "Don't you coach me right now? I want advice. I don't want coaching."
So there's a big sign: coaching mode. Coaching mode. It's a bit like on air. It's like you don't slip in it. But I know it's because you want to help people, and that's all with it. And they should be grateful. Tell them they should be grateful. Tell them Mike says they should be grateful for it, and there's a free set.
But there's a difference between, you know, giving that feedback, giving advice, and coaching. And when I slip in a coaching mode, they know it.
Absolutely. So, Tamica, originally from Boston, Massachusetts, love the place. Obviously, we are part of our business model. We have a HubSpot inbound agency, which are based at Cambridge, of course. So we head over there for their annual conference, and we've done all the Freedom Tour trails over there. It's the JFK Museum, and been at Fenway Park, and all that sort of stuff. So Phoenix now, we talked about it earlier. What was the driver to sort of move? You know, because ultimately, what are you, 5 hours on a domestic, or 3-4 hours domestic flight difference from Boston?
So 5 hours or so on a flight, and most of my family is still back home. So I go a couple times a year. I was just there. My best friend got remarried, and so I was out there for her wedding. Actually performed her wedding ceremony. I'm a wedding officiant as well. I have a very random life.
So what was the driver for you to exchange the variable climate of Boston to the desert?
Climate. I have a large family. One of my sisters moved here when I was in high school, and we came to visit her in February, and we were like swimming, and I was like, this needs to be my life.
Yeah.
So
you made the jump.
Working for a company in Boston that closed, and when they closed, I was like, you know what? I'm moving.
You're in there. No, it's great, and sometimes it's as simple as that. And before we get into the questions and to dig deep about, you know, how you're helping, you know, support women in leadership with the personal brand. As a published author, we're on Amazon. You can check out Tamica's book. You Are Enough is the title. Again, for you guys listening on the Audible section or not watching on the videos, we'll put this in the show links. Just head over to blog.thesuccesshub.io/podcast. We'll put this link into the Amazon store. And not the traditional type of book that most people would expect. Tamica, had a look at it myself, ordered it. It hasn't arrived as yet. I do apologize. So I haven't had a chance to read it. But tell me, why did you go? Tell me tell the audience what the format is around the Coach Motivation. But then tell me why you went that way.
So the format is 30 days of inspirational and motivational quotes to help you boost your self-esteem. And one of the reasons why I did that, I was having a conversation with someone, and they were just like, you know, I just want someone every day to tell me that I'm great. And I was like, huh. So I don't know how to create an app. I don't have a mind like that, unfortunately. So I was like, what I can do is put together a book. And so the book is set up so that you can write in it, which, sorry, Ma, you can write in the book your thoughts and the ways that you are going to have those quotes help you throughout the day. And so it's designed so that in 30 days you can have a better mindset.
Oh, that's brilliant. And listen, I make no apologies for writing in books. I'm on my, no word of a lie is true. I'm on my 7th copy of Think and Grow Rich. I've battered 2 out. I've given some out till I never got them back. I've written all over them. And also another favorite book of mine is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. The margin notes that I've written in that book, I'm embarrassed because I just defaced the heck out of it, but it's just I see something there and I'm in there and I can always go back to it. And what's interesting is, based on where I'm at in my life, I go back and read Psycho-Cybernetics, I go back and read Think and Grow Rich. I was recently actually on the other side of the microphone guested on Heather Powdy's podcast on Unconventional Leaders. And, she asked me a question about what's the thing in Think and Grow Rich that stood up for you, Mike? And I said, it's totally where I'm at in life. When I read it when I was 21, it was something totally different, that burning desire to go out and do. Today, it's that continuous mastermind stuff and continuous learning. So I think it's where you're at in your journey. And when I go back and look at all these margin notes and writing all over these books, and I think, after a couple of years, I thought, I've got to start dating these because I've got to remember why that was important. Yeah. So I'm now putting margin notes in with dates. So when I go back a year or 2 years later, I'm thinking, that's maybe not as important today. So we're not saying go and deface books at all, but what we are saying is if it helps you, it benefits you. But I love the idea. And I might actually do a bit of a swipe and deploy for my book there, because I got about 140 quotes developed that I always put one in my blogs and things like that. And I always put something around the subject. So I might actually think about using something similar, but not certainly ripping it off. But looking forward to getting a copy. And did you get a lot of satisfaction out of developing that? And what was your biggest takeaway about developing that type of book? I'd really love to learn about that.
I did get a lot of satisfaction, actually. And it's funny because it's like you put something out there, you never know if it's going to, how it's going to land. And someone reached out to me and they said that they keep it, they did their 30 days and they keep it on their desk. And they said that just kind of looking at it boosts their self-esteem and reminds them of how great they are. And I was like,
That's great, because if you do what I'm sure you agree with this. I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, Tamica, but for me, and I'm sure as a fellow coach, you see that one piece of impact that you've had positively with people, it becomes all worth it, and it's
yes.
like, wow, that's what it's about, and I certainly get a lot of that for sure. So tell me about the cutest dog in the country. I don't want to bypass the kids, but I'm interested in the kids. As a dog lover myself, I've got 3 chocolate Labradors. They're all bitches. They're all insane. They're all bonkers. They run around like crazy. And, so I'm a big dog lover. So tell me about this cutest dog in the country claim, because that's a big claim. It's a lot of dogs in your... So what type of breed do you have?
She is a Dachshund and Jack Russell mix.
Wow. And you just best friend.
Yeah, people look at her and they're like, what is that? And she's just adorable. And she's getting old, so she's a little gray now. But she's still she's got like the longer back, right. But she jumps like a Jack Russell. She's just crazy. Gets into everything. I have like signs up in my house like you can't leave anything on the floor because she'll eat it. Yeah. But she's the best. Love her to death.
No, brilliant. And you'll have to post as a photo. We'll get her included on the page as well. But I really appreciate you sharing your backstory, Tamica. I think that there's a lot of home truths in there for people listening. And, you don't have to be, at the top of your profession to hire a coach. You don't have to, be in the darkest depths of despair. It doesn't matter where you are. You can always take advice. You can always get help. And, you know, people like Tamica and the quality that she delivers is certainly there to help. So please check her out at searscoaching.com, and also send her a message and let her know, you know, on one of the social channels, whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you know, how this podcast helped you. What was maybe your biggest takeaway? I'm sure you'd love to hear that feedback, and, you know, we go from there. So when we talk about supporting women in leadership to increase their personal brand, let's just drill down and dial down on those a little bit more, Tamica. So the topic of personal branding, I believe, is used very freely. It's thrown about. I think a lot of people that I speak to is I don't want to go out there. I don't want my name on this, my personal brand, and this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of confusion that I see that people. What is a personal brand? Do I have to have my name? You know, because do I have to have Mike Midgley coaching or Mike Midgley leader or Mike Midgley thing? You know, people have the Mike Midgley or the whatever it would be. And there's no right or wrong. But I suppose the first question that I've got for you, for people who are maybe just getting started, the topic of personal branding, what does it really mean, and how should they dial down so that they're approaching this the right way, Tamica? Because if you start off wrong, it's like starting with a wobbly wheel, isn't it? You know, gets worse. So what does that personal branding mean to you, and why is it so important to support women in industry today?
So I think what it boils down to, like the sheer essence of personal brand is what are the thoughts about you before you enter the room, and what are the thoughts about you when you leave the room?
Interesting. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think I'm entering the room, I'm leaving the room. How do I compute that? And wow, it's a really deep, powerful thought. Just help me understand a little bit more about that.
So your personal brand is all about who you are and the identity that you're putting out into the world. Yeah. So if you are putting something, you could be putting something out into the world without even realizing it. So it's important that you do kind of pulse check. And if you're trying to grow and develop, whether you're growing a business or you're growing in the corporate world, because I do firmly believe that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that is quite okay. If everyone were an entrepreneur, there wouldn't be any organizations. So, you know, it's okay to check in, and you can ask someone what they think of you. Like people just don't ever do that. You know, ask. Because if you are putting out a vibe, and before you walk into the room, people are like, oh my God, Tamica's on her way. Oh, like that's not the personal brand that you want to have. No. You know, if people say, I can't wait for Tamica to get here because she's going to bring some deep insight and perspective to this topic. That's what you want that personal brand to be.
They don't look forward to it, don't they? That, I'm going to engage. Right. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. And obviously, you're very passionate about this with your coaching and your personal brand and supporting. But why does personal branding resonate with you? Why that cause? You know, there's so many other talents that you have, so many other things that you can bring. Why does that resonate with you so much?
I think specifically for women, because there is that old school thought of, you know, that women have to be that rough and tumble grump of a person in order to get things done. Yeah. And so that's kind of been the women in leadership brand for a really long time, that you either have to be this like crazy, you know, mean woman, or this, you know, that sexual sleep your way to the top woman. Yeah. And I'm like, there's a whole heap of stuff in between those two. And we need to work with women so they understand they can be themselves. If you are mean and grumpy, knock yourself out. That'll work for you. If you are, you know, sexually attractive and you're using that to your advantage, go for it. But if you're not, which a lot of people are that in between, and they're like, where do I fit in? Yeah. And so working with those people and helping them understand that you still have a brand, and your brand matters, and your brand needs to speak to people. I just love it. I just have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I suppose you see people grow as well in that, because they become more confident and things like that. So, no, that's absolutely right. So, you know, you talked about that middle section, but it applies to all, of course. You know, the women listen to this sort of podcast, watching it on the blog. They might be saying there, but why should I have a personal brand? You know, why should I pay attention to my personal brand? When you get asked about that, because sometimes it's not because they're maybe hesitant, they don't want it, maybe they just don't understand it. So, in your view, how would you cover why people, why women should pay attention to their own personal brand? What's the benefits of doing that or whatever?
As an HR professional, I've been in the room with leaders when they have conversations about people. And the people that have a personal brand, the people that put themselves out there and there's something memorable about them, those are the people that get discussed. The people that do the best work that are not memorable stay behind doing the best work year after year after year without being promoted, without getting a bonus, without those things, because they're just not memorable.
Oh, wow. So you're associating the personal brand to sort of be out there, becoming memorable. And, without, we're not asking you to breach any confidentiality, Tamica, but, give me a typical situation. You could even make it up, example company X. You're in one of those HR meetings. How does that memorability, how does that come through in those conversations? And, give us a couple of outcome scenarios of how maybe people are getting overlooked and how people are getting progress. So just, if we could not necessarily role play a HR environment, but just rewind back to one, change the company name to company X, just give us an example of, why people are missing out and why people are getting ahead and those type of discussions. I'd love to sort of be a fly on the wall of some of the new experience and how that plays out.
So when a company's doing succession planning,
yeah,
and they're putting together, they're saying that they're planning for the CEO, right? And they're like, who can take this spot? And they're having conversations about 22 different people.
Yeah.
Definitely, I've had conversations that sound like, Bob really stood out when he was on that project because he was innovative. He gave this and that. He's known for being an idea generator.
Yeah.
Susie, we might actually think about, seeing what she can do in this situation because she is someone that is really, really known for execution. Yeah. Like we know that if you give something to Susie, it is going to get done. It's going to get done well.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you known for? And there are the other people that they're like, well, I don't really know Jane. Does anybody here know? Have you worked with Jane? Yeah, I worked with her, but I don't really remember anything.
And they're confused about it, or they're not definitive with it.
Yes. So then Jane doesn't end up on the plan, but the person who is known for getting things done absolutely does.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's really helped. So, I always try to dumb it down to my 5th grade level. And I just love that simplicity. So what we're actually saying is, you're committed to your job, you're working hard, you're getting results, be known for something, have that brand ability, because that's what remembers. And I was speaking to John earlier on today about stories, in a totally different subject, but it's the stories that people remember. And in this same thing, it's that personable branding that people remember. And that's what gets discussed. And imagine if you're doing great work. I mean, Tamica mentioned earlier, you're stuck in that job, you love the job, great company, but you're not really known for something, you're not stuck out there, and you see people time after time after time getting promoted above you, getting ahead of you, maybe becoming your supervisor or manager or director or VP or whatever that may be. And you're sat there thinking, wondering why. Well, sometimes have a look inside or go get some help, speak with Tamica, let's get those inner talents out and let's start to get you brandable. So I really appreciate you covering that. And that's the importance of that, because, if you are interested in getting ahead and you're wondering why you're getting overlooked, then, this may be an exact thing that, that's that aha moment that people say, right. And great. And that's amazing advice. Thank you so, so much, Tamica. That's great. And I think it segues really nice into, for women who are just getting started, the pro tips that you can offer and help women to build their personal brand. Yeah, we've talked about becoming noticed, but let's just go down a couple of levels there. If we were to bring out those pro tips for people who are just getting started, Tamica, what would you say, you must tick these off and master these to get started?
So the first thing that I would tell anyone to do is do a DISC assessment or something like that so they can find out more about their strengths and weaknesses, and do a 360. So some companies offer it internally. Sometimes you have to go to a coach to have them do it externally. But until you have a sense for who you are and how people see you, you're just kind of, working against the wind. Like you're you could just be spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
So that's definitely my tip number one. Tip number two is don't take anything personally.
A lot of people do. They find it difficult to have that. They feel that, oh, they've been harsh on me, or they're prejudicing me, or whatever it would be. So don't take it personally. Yeah.
Right. So that's a really big thing, because then you're not coming at things from a really good mindset or a really good perspective for growth if you're taking things personally. And the third thing is ask for what you want.
Interesting.
So if you are, you want to build your personal brand, you want to coach, you want whatever, and you don't have money to pay for it, or you think that the company should pay for it, ask. You would be amazed the number of things that people get just for asking. And there are sometimes people like, how come so-and-so has blah, blah, blah? Well, they asked for it. So that's my tip number 3. Ask for what you want.
Yeah. And you know what? It's right, because if they see the talent and they know that will help and develop, then, why wouldn't they do that? It's a reasonable request. It's relevant to where you're at. Absolutely. And, I know that companies, it may be slightly different, but I know some companies give budgets that they'll say, here are, it doesn't even have to be work related. It could be to help learn another language, which maybe helps you can cover on the customer service desk in one of our foreign businesses. And they will help you develop. And, I know the Infusionsoft keep people down, where you are in Infusionsoft really well. And I know they've been through some turbulent times recently, but ultimately they was one of the companies where they used to make available, and I still think they do, an element of budget that helps you invest and develop yourself in an area that may not be related to software or whatever, because, it's developing you as a person, it's bringing a wider range of skills and education, and whether it's related directly or indirectly to what they do as a core business or what their revenue model is, it does add value, increases staff morale and things like that. So, if you've got to ask, go out there and get it. I love that. And if people are sat there, Tamica, and thinking, I'm fearful about how to approach my boss, because what's naturally going through the head, they want the end results, but they want the fear of rejection. How would you advise them to sort of approach? Because if you go barging into your boss's desk and go, bang, I demand this, then you're probably going to get a negative result. So what's the best way that people could approach it to sort of get the best chance of getting a result? Have you got any tips around how they could approach them?
Yeah, it's the same as they would ask for budget for a project, right? You have to put together the ROI.
Yeah.
So this is how much this is going to cost. This is what I'm going to get out of it. And this is going to be the return to the company, which is, very simple to say. If you're going to have better attendance, less attrition, more productivity, increased engagement, those are all things that you can put a number to and say, if you invest, this $10,000, this is what you get out of it.
Yeah.
If your company has a tuition reimbursement plan, which a lot of companies have like up to $5,000 a year, then you say, okay, I have my degree, but this is going to take me to the next level. So I'd like you to put that $5,000 towards this.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. And it's Skip Miller, a big hero of mine in M3 Learning. He talks about above the line and below the line sort of discussions. And above the line is where you're speaking to C-suite and you're keeping it, what's in it for the return of the business. And transferable skills, because ultimately it's got to be relevant, it's got to be valuable, it's got to give value. Ultimately, you're framing it. So, something like a one-pager, or would you put a full plan together, or how would you approach it to do that, or is that just a discussion? What do you think the simplest way is?
So I know your boss and know what works for them. That's why I love DISC, because it really tells you how to communicate with other people. So if someone's bringing something to me, make it short and sweet and to the point. Yeah. So that's always my advice. Is if you the more precise and to the point that you can get it, the better. If you say this is what I want. This is what it's going to cost you. This is what you'll get out of it. And then you can have backup of the details. Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And for you guys who are not familiar with DISC, it's an assessment system about characteristics. It's an amazing thing. You can take the test online. You can pay there. There's also a tool. I don't know if you use this in the States too much, Tamica, but it's a Crystal Nose that I don't know if you've come across that. There's like a plug app in where we actually use it in our sales teams. And it's like $30 a month. and we hook it up. And then when we're going to speak to somebody, we put that name into Crystal Knows. And if there is an online presence, either linked to email or whatever, or LinkedIn, and it actually says the type of questions that you should ask this person, and it's linked to the disc. Well, so go check it out. It's called crystalknows.com, and it can be a Chrome extension. And I think you get so many free credits, and then it's like $30 a month or something. And it says, why am I going to speak to Tamica? Am I going to interview her? I'm going to ask her for a job. Do I ask her for advice? So it gives you different scenarios that you can put in, and it's linked to the disc sort of mentality, or not mentality, methodology, should I say. Yeah. And based on what I'm going to sort of engage with you about, and whether it's I'm asking for a raise, I'm asking to be promoted, I'm asking for advice, I'm asking to be connected to something, it sort of frames the type of questions that you should use with that type of profile. Don't mention this and the things that you need to avoid. And we use it in our sales stuff, because if we get in a big C-level pitch, and whether we're speaking above or below the line, as Skip says it, it's good to run them through that disc and that Crystal Knows sort of thing, because you can start to really hit. And it's not always accurate. It's AI intelligence at the end of the day. It's learning all the time, but you will be surprised about some of the dead ends that you cannot go down. So as a quick tip from my side, go check it out and, shoot us a message. Let us know if you use it and if you think there's some value there. But pretty cool stuff. So yeah, I get it. And know your boss. I love that simplicity there to make it, it's because if your boss likes the long form business case, then deliver it, and if they want something short and sweet, deliver that and put it on a summary page. So love that advice. That's fantastic. Really appreciate that. So as we start wrapping out on the questions, what is the one thing that a woman in leadership can do right now to start building the personal brand?
Figure out what you're good at.
Yeah.
That is the number one thing, because I think sometimes people, I know that I've done it, and 90% of the people that I've coached have done it. You think your strength is one thing, but when you do the actual work, you're like, oh, I'm actually super good at this.
Yeah, and because people do have self-confidence issues, and there'll be people listening out there, and I suffered from this, early on in my career, that people say, hey, Mike, you're pretty good at that. You should pursue that. And I'm like, no, I'm not really good at that. You're just saying that to make me feel good. And, that way, because, those, they're not necessarily negative tendencies. They're just lack of confidence sometimes. And how do people overcome that? You'll see that. I'm sure you see that many times, getting people to take that first step. How do they do that? Do they look at themselves in the mirror and just shout at themselves and say, go do it, do they go and watch a box season of 24 and get motivated? Or, or what do they do?
So the simple exercise that I have people do, super simple, is take 30 minutes and write down 10 to 15 things, over the last however many years you want to go back, that you've done and that you've done really, really well. And then put it on something that you can take it with you, so that when you're feeling down, you can pull out that list and be like, oh, I'm a badass.
Yeah, and not be frightened to admit that.
Yeah.
Because if you do it in a humble way, it's not boasting or being egotistical, but it's just recognizing that self-indulgence, isn't it?
Yep. And everyone has things that they've done and that they've done well. And people start off and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can get to 10 things, and then when you're sitting there really, really thinking about it, you're at 20. So it's really just taking that time and devoting time to you saying, this is what I've gotten done, and I've gotten it done really well. So it's not necessarily what I'm good at. It's that, truly, you're like, I have done so much. Yes.
It is. And this is a question from me, and it gets slightly off script. It's just something different. But is there any value, do you think, in building on that exercise where, I'm sat here and I'm going to start at 1 and I'm going to fill in some pages. I'd probably break it down into social, business, friendship, what I'm good, what I'm bad at, things like that. Is there any value in me writing down what I think, but then say going to my wife, somebody who knows me, I've been with my wife for 23 years approaching, is there any value in me sort of not showing her my answers, but saying, hey, write 10 things down that you think I do really, really well?
Yes.
Then maybe they go to a professional colleague who's not, a relationship that's professional, who's known me for 20 years, and they're going to say, hey, could you write me down 10 things that you think I do really, really well? And then sort of pooling those and overlaying them to see if there's any consistencies. Is that a good thing, or does that steer away from my own personal vision? And I suppose that's just something I'd love to learn, because I've come across people who say, Mike, get it down, get it nailed down. You know what you got to, you've got actual results to back it up. Don't trust people who don't know you as well, or people who are not looking at in the context of the situation. And I just love your thing. So totally off script, totally from there. Because I've had it both ways, where people say, Mike, put yours down, get somebody who knows you intimately and relationship-wise, and get somebody who knows you professionally, pick it out, go for that. And then I've had other people who say, don't do that, put it down for you only, and then follow your path. I'd just love to get your input on that.
I'm a fan of data. So I think the more data you have, the better. So if you can go to your wife and say, what are my greatest strengths? And you can go to a peer and say, what are my greatest strengths? And go to a leader and say that. And then maybe go to your kids and say, what do you think I'm good at, kids? And then there will be things that overlap. But I think one of the things that helps even more with this exercise is they're going to name things that you didn't realize were a strength for you.
Yeah.
So you're going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that my children saw me that way, and that they think that I'm really good at this.
Interesting.
Or, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that my boss thought that my strategic vision was like a strength of mine. So I think when you open that up, you learn about yourself, because you just have your perspective. So when you're putting down your strengths, it's just that one narrow view. And as a coach, I'm all about opening the aperture and getting multiple perspectives.
Oh, that's brilliant. I really appreciate you sharing that. And thank you for adding that extra question in there. That's me putting in an extra question at the end there, just to sort of get some clarity, because, obviously, the quality that Tamica delivers through her programs. And as I say, if you want to learn more, head over to searscoaching.com. If you're interested in going out to Phuket in Thailand in October to one of Tamica's retreats, we're going to talk about that in a moment. You can head over to searscoaching.com/event-directory. Just tell us what these retreats are a little bit about, Tamica. If somebody's a woman in business, a woman in leadership, what can they expect? Of course, they can learn more on the website at that event-directory URL extension I've just given you. The link will be in the show notes if you're listening on the app. But what can they expect? Talk me through what that event and the retreat looks like.
So this particular retreat is going to be a very, very unique experience for some, because it's a 2-hour workshop for 5 days, and then following the workshop is a 2-hour spa treatment. So we're going to do some pretty intense work during the workshops, and it's going to start with kind of some self-discovery. So I go through my 5 senses of self. So it helps you with your self-esteem, your self-confidence, down through self-acceptance. And there are exercises that we're going to do each day to get you there, to get you to full self-acceptance. And it's not just woo, like it is very much into what are you going to do when you get back? When you're back in your job, in your world, what are the things that you're going to do so that you keep this feeling with you, so that you keep this empowerment and you can keep this going?
That's brilliant. And talk to me, so the 2-hour workshops, spa treatments are always great. And then do you do sort of team building events, or is, what else does that look like? You're 5 days in professionality. Amazing.
So we're going to have team dinners. We're going to have shopping. We're going to have tons of different things. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's structured so that people can, you can go to your boss and say, this is what I'm going to do, and this is why I think you should pay for it. Actually, I have instructions on that on my LinkedIn articles, so that it is structured so that you are going to get something out of that. So when you go to work, when you come back, you're going to be a different person.
Yeah.
But you're also, going to have fun while you're there. Because one of my mottos of people that know me, like I always say, you work too many hours a day to not have fun while you're there. So I'm all about having fun.
Absolutely. And, it's an amazing sort of place in the world. And why that location? Is that something that you've done before, or is that just something that is related to bringing out the best of this particular type of retreat? Because a lot of people say, especially bosses say, hey, well, why is it not in domestic US? Is Leicester Go or whatever it be? I'm just wondering why you chose that.
So I have my favorite aunt is absolutely beautiful, wonderful woman, and she is a flight attendant with Delta. And she, at 1 year, Delta gave everyone like a first class trip anywhere. Brilliant. And so she took me to Thailand, and we went to Phuket, and it was like the best vacation I've ever had in my entire life. So that place has a very special meaning to me.
Oh, absolutely right. And as I say, if you can connect with it, that's where you do your best work as well. So that's great. Tamica, I am so privileged to have interviewed you today. Thank you so much for sharing, the work that you do, your views on why supporting women in leadership to build a personal brand is so important. It just makes so much sense. I appreciate your experience so much. If we were to try and condense down, as we wrap out on the show here, 3 pro tips. We've got women sat there, and there may be some men who's wanting to do this as well, of course, and we're not going to exclude you guys. I'm just saying this, but if we were going to drill down and sort of bring 3 pro tips to the table for somebody wanting to get started with this, what would you sort of bring them out to sort of say, get started 1, 2, and 3 as a summary recap?
To get started with personal branding or coaching?
Yeah, supporting women in leadership and get started with a personal brand. Yeah, so just what's the 3 pro tips to get them started?
3 pro tips, I would say, if you're in a big organization and you have HR, go to your HR person and see what supportive care they have. If they can do a 360, if they can give you access to coaching. Yep. So start with your HR group. Yep. If you don't have HR, then scour the internet and look for a coach, because that's going to be your next best thing. Do exactly what you said. Ask around. What am I good at? Yeah. And then you can figure out those things that you need to build into your personal brand. Yeah. And then focus on those strengths. So when it comes to what do you want to be known for, let it be those strengths. So if 5 people said that, what you're really, really, really good at is making people feel accepted, let that be your brand. Yeah. That's what you're known for. That's where you come through us. And if you dial down and become good at one thing, it's like the Apple technology thing. Whether you love Apple or you're an Android, it doesn't make a difference. But Apple were good at one thing. They used to boil it down to simplicity and then communicate it really, really well. So that makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. So Tamica, thanks ever so much again. I'm super appreciative for the time that you've taken out of your day. I know how valuable it is. The value that you've provided is immense. So, I can't thank you enough. So just really thank you for being on the show. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great. And again, if you want to check out Tamica online, head over to searscoaching.com. If you're interested in the October retreat to Thailand, you can just search in the events section of the website, event-directory. So thanks again, Tamica. Looking forward to catching up with you real soon on the follow-up show to this. And as always, we appreciate you continuing your growth engine development. As always, to get in the game, go do the hustle, go make it happen. And we're going to catch up with you on another Open Mic podcast real soon. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by The Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.